Thank you very much. Okay, so the this is our third shot on this mission. I'm hoping this is the last one, but I'm hoping it doesn't really matter. If it is, it is. It isn't, it isn't. I mean, there's a lot to get out of this Mishnah. So the Mishnah says, and we did the first part of it. Hu Omer used to say, Ben Chamesh Shanim Lemikra, that a 5-year-old is fitting and ready to learn Chumash, to learn the Torah Shebechsav, to learn the written Torah. Then we said that Ben Eser, the 10-year-old, is ready to now start to learn Mishnah, which is the first blush of the oral Torah, and Ben Shlosh Esrei Lemitzvos, and a 13-year-old in the middle there transitions from being a person or a child who is not obligated in keeping commandments to be one that is obligated in keeping commandments. So he flips, he transitions into this stage of being able to keep mitzvos. And we said that the reason that he is now able to keep mitzvos is because he's got two keys, and the key of his relationship with God and his relationship with other people. And once you've got a handle on that, once you can understand that there is a God in the world and other people are important, you're now capable of keeping every single commandment in the Torah, because every single commandment in the Torah falls into one of those three categories. Then Ben Chamesh say the Talmud, now he's able to transition into a more halachic, practical kind of learning, which also contains a theoretical part, in the sense that to understand the background of the learning and to understand and to put together halachos. So then that's what this child is now capable of doing, or person is now capable of doing. And from 15 to 20, he's engaged in that type of study. But in the middle there, he goes through another transition. And that other transition has been Shmona Seilu Chuppa, is an 18-year-old to get married. Now, this is not a suggestion. Mishnayos said the Mishnayos in Pirkei Avos, in all of Mishnah, is not really a suggestion. It's sort of like a halachic concept. So the Mishnah is telling us that when is the appropriate age to get married? 18. Now, any parent looks at this and says, 18? What does that mean? That means if 18 is time to get married, it means people can get married even before 18, like 16. Like, can you imagine getting married and not being able to make a l'chaim at your own wedding? It's like, it's just not normal, right? How would we say that that's possible? A person get married at 18. So let me present what the Torah's ideology is, but that's not what I get at this Mishnah. I get something very, very powerful out of this Mishnah. So what the Mishnah is really telling us is that the Mishnah understands that a man and a woman, that everybody has certain passions and desires, and left unchecked, they are normal, they are powerful, they are healthy, they are good, but left unchecked, it can only get a person into trouble. I don't think that it's necessary to have to spell out the trouble, but I think that it's understood that a person at 18, as we live now in a very open, an open world, sexually and morally, that when we call certain things problems, so then the world looks at us and says, what's the problem? Like, it's not a problem. I mean, in the Torah, in the concept of the Torah, in the understanding of the Torah, so then premarital sex would be something that's prohibited, something that is a negative value in Torah Judaism. Yeah, in the world, it may be just maybe just a little uncomfortable to talk about, but only maybe. Right? It's not, but anything other than that, in other words, doing it, it's not uncomfortable. It's the way of the world. It's the way the world goes. Okay, but if we put that in a place and say that that's something that we're trying to stay away from, so then the logic dictates that you have to get married young, because those passions, that you can't keep those passions in check for such a long period of time. There is no socializing in the Torah concept. There is no there's no such thing as friends. The Torah understands that there are certain levels of relationships, and for that reason, Ben Shmainasei L'Chuppah is what makes sense. Now, I'll go into it more in a second, but I'll tell you what you just bumped into. You just bumped into the reason why The reason why Judaism is having a very hard time today. It's not because of premarital sex. The reason that Judaism is having a very hard time today is because we've adopted somebody else's value system, and we're trying to stick it and to gerrymander it into the Torah's value system. And we've just come across in very clearly an example of where the Torah's value system and the world's value system are completely at odds with each other. And because they're completely at odds with each other, to stick the two together is pert near impossible. But don't think that this is the only area that happens in. Many of the reasons why we have difficulties with some of the mitzvot, some of the philosophies and ideologies in Judaism is only because we're approaching them from the values we know, which are the world's values and which are secular values. Notice, in a world that values pleasure, but values pleasure in a context, not pleasure without any rules, not pleasure without any boundaries, but pleasure within a context. So then getting married at 18, having children young, being there for your great, great grandchildren's simchas. And when I say being there, not just being alive and, just being able to be present, but literally being engaged and involved. I mean, I'll tell you, my sister-in-law, my wife's sister, just had her first great grandchild, and she is. I'm not going to give away her age, but under the age, like under the legal age of being a great grandmother, it's but in a world where you get young, where you get married young, your children get married young, you're there for all of these things. Great grandparents, because that's the way families are meant to be. Families are meant to be, knows again, in a system which values this, in a system which is trying to create this. This makes sense. In a system that says, what's the most important thing in a person's life? Don't tell me family. Don't tell me family, because it's not true. Now, it could be your individual, your personal feeling of what the most important thing is, but there is nothing about the structure of the lives we lead that says that it's about family. That we have to work so hard. We have our jobs and the money that we make. That's really the value. I think I've mentioned this before, but at a pigeon a ben, when a child is born, a firstborn son, and that firstborn son has to be redeemed at 30 days old, because he has the firstborns were sanctified to God. They were like the Kohanes in the temple. So the firstborn was sanctified, and we had to de-sanctify him by giving money to the Kohen, sort of buying him back from the Kohen. And there's a very beautiful ceremony that takes place with a baby at 30 days old. Less painful than the one that took place 30 days before. No knives are involved in this one. No snipping, no cutting, and it's just a beautiful ceremony. And the Kohen turns to the father and says the following words: "My bois tvei. What do you want more? Do you want the money, or do you want your child?" What? What father, especially if the mother is there, what father is going to say to the Kohen, "Oh, I, you know, I think I'm going to keep the money. You can keep the kid. It's fine. Look, it's only the first kid. It's not even that dramatic. Okay, it's a little crying in the house, fine, but it's only one kid. Ask this question on number 7. My boy straight, which do you want more? The money or the kid? What are you asking on baby number 1? Because what the Kohen is saying to the father is that this is going to be your life's your life's dilemma. This is going to travel with you throughout your life. My boy's tvei. What do you want more? What is a bigger value to you? Is it your son? Is it your family? Is it instilling values in him, or is it the money? Is it the material living, the material existence? And I'm not accusing everybody in the world of doing that, but that's certainly the world that we've created. And when I say we, I don't mean anybody here. I'm saying the world that we've created is talking about society, has created that kind of world. That the degrees that you get and the money that you make is all part of who you are and the value of the life you're living. In the Torah value system, in a pure Torah value system, and unfortunately it's gotten difficult to find this in practice, but in a pure Torah system and a pure Torah value system, those are not the things that are set up. The things that are on the top of the list, the things that we gun for, is values, ethics, knowledge, Torah knowledge, excelling in Torah knowledge, as a person who's going to work, not as a rabbi. But excelling in Torah knowledge is something that we've relegated to rabbis, to professionals. And not that every person has to gain Torah knowledge. Not every person has to be an expert in Torah, which is not the Torah's value system. So when you have a value system that's based completely on different values, so then statements like this, ben shmonos Chuppa, that an 18-year-old that's ready for him to get married, well, it makes perfect sense. But it's nuts when you think about it in our context. We look at an 18-year-old still as a very young person. Well, because we've set up a system that at 18, they're not ready yet to make a parnasa. But if you set up a system where at 18, they're now ready to go and to conquer the world, to begin to conquer the world, to get ready to conquer the world, and you put that kind of confidence in them, you create that system, you'll get that. You won't get it in a system that says at 18, you're still sowing your oats. At 18, you're still having a good time. No, go have a good time. Don't tie yourself down yet. Go have a good time. Go enjoy the world. Go to college, get that college experience. When you set those things up, then that's the way society operates. But when you set up a society that says, you're 18? Okay, settle down, buddy. Because now it's time to start. Now it's time to start to get to work to what you're here for, which is to create a family, which is to educate the next generation, which is to bring them up with a certain value. That's our system. What we have what we have just opened our eyes to is, and this happens, by the way, all the time. I was just excited about seeing it so clearly here that we, if you just open your eyes, you realize that we're living on different planes. Now, what happens when you live on different planes? Okay, then of course you have to try to stick the two together. But we have to recognize that sticking the two together is our value system has to come first. Our value system has to be the foundation, and then we can take the world's value system and put that inside. Sunday. Sunday is a very important day for us. Sunday is the day you get to, especially for a person that's, that has a Shabbos. It's not much you can do on Shabbos as far as, errands and things. And then Sunday is a necessary day. Sunday is the one day, a little break. And then you come into Monday. Could you imagine living a life without a Sunday? No, because when does Monday happen then? Does Monday really happen on Sunday? Like, the blues, when you're schlepping and you're going to work with your eyes half closed. Like, when does that happen? That happens already on Sunday? Wow, that's rough. Imagine that you start your week, literally start your week on Sunday like that. Welcome to Israel. There ain't no Sunday. I love when they use the word weekend. Weekend means Shabbos day. That's all. That's the weekend. There's a weekend. They've developed a weekend here. Now Friday is like Sunday. Friday. Many businesses are closed on Friday. It's almost like a weekend day. It's like a Sunday, but on Friday. But for people that keep Shabbos, it doesn't really help much, especially in the winter. What does it give you? 25 minutes in the morning that you don't really have anything to do. It's not really a day of an advantage. But you turn to an American, you say to an American, we're taking away your Monday, and you have to work on Sunday. And your school year is going to go till somewhere around mid-July. You're going to pick up again in mid-August. And people go crazy. Well, what are you doing? You're stealing my whole summer. Like, I can't do that. Because we've been trained. We've been trained that a human being can't live without a Sunday. and can't live without 2.5 months, almost 3 months in the summer to have a vacation from school. We're trained that way, that's the way you exist. But if you set down a different set of values, then all of a sudden that becomes possible. We're just approaching, again, things with a certain, I'm saying they're good or bad. I'm not making a value judgment, but they're just different values. If you build the structure from the Torah, what does the Torah expect from us? So then values are very different. You can even learn from this what the Torah says about love. What do you think the Torah says about love? 18-year-old gets married. 18-year-old gets married means that if he was going out with this girl for 10 years, that means that they met in kindergarten. They couldn't read yet before they fell in love. Like, get out of here. That means that there's none of that. That means there's only commitment in a Jewish marriage. Love will come from that commitment, but that's the basis of a Jewish marriage. Basis of Jewish marriage is commitment. I'm making a commitment to love you. I'm making a commitment to build a family with you. I'm making a commitment to build the world with you. Do I love you the day we get married? Don't be ridiculous. Don't be ridiculous. That word, a chassan turns to his kala and he says, "I love you." Why? What do you love? I'm not saying you shouldn't say it, but I'm saying, in other words, if we look at it in our terms, what are you loving? There's no relationship yet. Come back to me in 6 months. When you start to develop a relationship, and then it starts to grow. But that's the way the Torah looks at marriage. Marriage is about the growth. It's about the building of something. It's not the expression of love, because very rarely, even in the world that says that it is, very rarely is it really an expression of love. Most often when a couple gets married, what they're loving is they're loving what the other person does for them and what the other person means in their lives. But not this kind of commitment of completely giving themselves over to another person, that my life is about your life. Okay, it might develop in some marriages and it might not. But in our system, that's what we're gunning for. That's why Ben Shimon said, you have a lot of work to do. You have a lifetime to develop and to build. Start now. There's no reason, not only no reason not to, now is the perfect time. What about a parnasa? Who says you can't get a parnasa when you're married? Who says you can't do all of those things, continuing to set the foundation of the material life? But the material life is not the most important part. The most important part is the spiritual life. And that's the time to set down the foundations of that spiritual life. And again, it just sounds so wacky when you look at your own kids. You say 18. I can't even imagine. Of course you can't imagine it. You're not expected to imagine it. You can't. Because the whole setup was completely different. The whole world that we're living in is completely different. The way it looks at even the way the world looks at a 15-year-old. 15-year-old, we're trusting him a lot. We're putting that 15-year-old in a position of we're teaching him deep knowledge in Talmud, deep knowledge. But we're trusting him that he has the ability to be able to handle that, because that's his priority. In a world that it's not his priority, then yeah, this is weird. This educational system is weird. This whole development system is weird. If you were developing a system that was consistent with the world we were living in, when would you make a bar mitzvah? When would you say to a child, you have to keep mitzvahs? Well, for some people, if they were able to get their hands on the system, they would take bar mitzvah out of the system, so that there was never a sense where you had to do anything. It's all about your choices, and you have the choices to do whatever you want. La, 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 la. Like, do me a favor. But that's what people would do. And that's consistent with the world we live in. But this is not presenting the values that we need to take and shtup into the world that we live in. This is presenting the values that need to be in the world so that we can exist the way that the Torah expects us to exist. There's not a lot that we can do about it other than just recognize what our values are and start to, start figuring out ways to keep them incorporated, which is always a big challenge. But at the end of the day, it's important to know this. It's important to know that when you look at something, you have to ask yourself the question, is this a Jewish way of looking at it? Is this a Torah way of looking at it? Even our politics, even our our attitudes about certain things, all of that stuff is critical. And that stuff ultimately has to come from the Torah. We have to ask ourselves that question, is this the proper way of looking at it? At death, at tragedy, the way that we view it, the way that we process it, are we processing it in the Torah way? Because all of that is part of the system. Okay, let's continue on. Ben Esrim Lirdov, 20-year-old, is ready now to Lirdov really means to chase, right? And it's not talking about chasing women. It's talking about Lirdov means to chase after the world. That in other words, now he is ready to he's got the tools to be able to go out there and to conquer the world. What are the tools that he needs to go conquer the world? He hasn't gone to college yet. He doesn't have a degree. He can't do complex math problems. What are the tools that we're talking about here? 0 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 15, 15 to 20. Those stages of his development where we are filling his mind with ideas, filling his mind with philosophies, filling his mind with ideology, filling his mind with direction and purpose. Now at the age of 20, he's ready to take some of that, to take all of that, and to start to create a life, to shape an existence. Because we've been giving him that. We haven't stuck him in front of a TV screen and let him watch Netflix for the past 20 years. We haven't bought him for every birthday a new video game. We haven't encouraged him just to develop himself and hang out with his friends and just do stuff and have experiences in life. We haven't been doing that. We've been shaping his mind and his character for the past 20 years. You know, it's very interesting. The Mishnah doesn't say it, but the Torah tells us pretty clearly. 13 was bar mitzvah. 18 was marriage. 20 is called a bar onshin. Bar onshin means that you are now capable of being punished by God. And what that means is that, you know, when it says in the Torah that if you do certain transgressions, then you're going to be cut off from your people. It's called extirpation. That you're going to be cut off from your people. A person eats chametz on Pesach. A person doesn't observe Yom Kippur. These are up there with the serious transgressions in the Torah. And what the Torah says is you're going to get extirpation. So if a 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 to 20-year-old does it, so then they don't get punished by the court. They don't get, or God even, they don't get this thing called extirpation. The death and this kind of punishment by court and by God, that only kicks in at the age of 20. You know why it only kicks in at the age of 20? You know what else kicks in at the age of 20? You can own a piece of land in the land of Israel. Because when they split up the land of Israel in the time of Moses and Aaron, that your portion of the land of Israel was only given to a 20-year-old. And army service is only to a 20-year-old, 20 and up. Why do you think? Because with the foundation that we gave you from 1 to 20, from 0 to 20, comes along a sense of responsibility for another person. That there are other people and they're important. You got it, your bar mitzvah. That came on you. You understood that at your bar mitzvah. But that you feel a sense of responsibility that I'm willing to give myself up for you. That I'm willing to take responsibility for you, and the things that I do are going to have an effect on you, and therefore I'm part of a thing called Klal Yisrael. And therefore, if I abrogate my responsibility, then I have basically wasted my life. I basically said that I don't deserve to exist here, which is what extirpation is. That can't happen until the age of 20. until I feel a sense of connection, responsibility. You can't put an 18-year-old out there on the front because an 18-year-old doesn't yet have that full sense of responsibility. He doesn't get that in our system, in our structure. He doesn't get that until 20. Once he gets that he can worry about the morale of other soldiers. That's why in an army, if you take 18-year-olds, you have to work for the first, X amount of months at breaking them. Breaking them. It's not just a question of getting them used to hard work. You have to break them and then rebuild them as people who are part of a unit, are part of a group. When you start at 20, you still have to break them, but you're starting at that place. Because at 20, in our system, in our structure, we understand that we have a national responsibility. We have a responsibility not just to ourselves, but to our people. And once you have that sense of responsibility, now I can take you to task when you don't observe Pesach and you don't observe Yom Kippur, because those are national moments of unity. And when you've disconnected yourselves from them, so then you have to justify your existence. That's why Ben Esrim, now that you feel that sense, you have all the tools you need, and you feel a sense of responsibility, now you are able to lirdof. Now you're able to run after the world. You're able to understand what it means to lust after something and to put your energy into something that is worthwhile. Because you have a set of priorities that you've been given over the past 20 years. And you have the biggest priority, which is a sense of achrayas, of responsibility. Responsibility to your family, responsibility to your people, responsibility to God. And until you've got that in spades, it's very difficult to actually to release you into the world. So that's stage one, from 20 to 30, is lirdov, is to go and to explore the world. But I don't have to worry. I don't have to worry that you're going to be grabbed by the world and you're going to be taken into a wrong place, because I've given you the tools. I don't have to worry that you're going to be influenced by all kinds of treifa ideas, by all kinds of craziness, because I have put so much into you. I remember I used to give a class up on UCSD. Once a week. It wasn't part of UCSD, but it was just the Jewish students. And one time we decided there was a lot of missionaries running around the campus. So the kids were interested in learning about missionaries and anti-missionary stuff. I'll tell you two fascinating things. So the first thing I did was I gave them a test. It was, I don't know, 12 questions, 15 questions. And the questions were about certain Catholic Christian things. I asked them, who the 12 apostles were. I asked them who the mother of Jesus was. And then on the other side, I asked them who the mother of Moses was. What were the names of the 12 tribes? There were parallel kinds of questions from our ideology and our Torah to the world's, the things you want in the world. They did much better on the world stuff than they did on the Jewish stuff. And these were kids that were not necessarily brought up with any kind of, Jewish education, but it was pretty incredible how little they understood of, and I'm talking about not even of deep values. I'm talking about just of simple things, of almost like facts, but how little of that they knew. And what was amazing, I first had to teach missionaries are basically taught somewhere between 15 and 20 points. And that's what they go out there and press. That's the average missionary. They know nothing more than that. If you ask them any questions, I was once sitting with my family in a place in some park. I can't remember the name of the park. It was like up to 15, and it was Pesach. So there we were with, we put a tablecloth on the park table. It was a beautiful, beautiful setting inside the woods, and the tablecloth and the matzahs are out. And the guy comes over and he says to me, "Excuse me, are you Jewish?" "No, I'm an Episcopalian." Like, I'm sitting there eating matzahs. Come on, even if you know nothing, you know that I'm Jewish. Like, what's the matter with you? So the guy says to me, "What do you think about Isaiah 51? And I looked at him and I said, and what do you think about Isaiah 50? And I see he's getting nervous. And I said, because you can't understand Isaiah 51 until you understand Isaiah 50, because that'll give you the context to understand who's being talked about in Isaiah 51, the suffering servant, who that is. The guy was like, holy cow, man, you know more than me. I can't argue with you. He says to me, thank you very much. Have a wonderful day. And he starts to walk away. I'm not letting you go. What are you crazy? I got a live one. So, and I started talking to him about Isaiah 50, and I could see the guy's eyeballs were like spinning. He had no idea what I was talking about. They don't know anything. They're just given a certain, a certain amount of info to be able to say, oh, and therefore you see that there's Jesus. I mean, they throw verses at you that are they take out of context, they twist around things that are not true. The whole virgin birth thing. I hope that everybody here does know this. The whole virgin birth thing is based on a mistranslation of a Hebrew word in a verse that has nothing to do with Jesus. A few small problems, but it's a mistranslation of a word. That's the whole virgin birth. Mistranslation of a word. Wow. When you tell them that, it's like, yeah, but you got a great career ahead of you. But you know what was amazing? When I would tell I would try to tell these kids about a verse in Leviticus, I had to explain to them what Leviticus was. And I had to explain to them what a verse was and how the Torah works. They had no basic knowledge, which would then, upon which you would build some kind of Jewish value system they had no basic knowledge. This 20-year-old is a student of Torah. This 20-year-old is filled. It's not just that he can quote you verses. He's living those verses and has been living them for 20 years with a knowledge. He is a completely different animal. You take a look at a yeshiva student, at a serious yeshiva student at the age of 20, and it's mind-blowing, not what they know in verses, not what they know in info, but in what they know in character development, in what they understand in humanity, what they understand about people. And that's what the Mishnah is saying. The Mishnah is saying that if you do this right, 5, 10, 15, then by 20, you can send them out into the world safely because they can hear from a missionary about Isaiah 50 and 51, and they know about Isaiah 52. And even if they don't know the particular information of Isaiah 52, they understand that this person is talking nonsense because they have such a foundation. And that's what the mission is telling us. Be careful before 20. Don't send them out there into the world. Again, Torah value. Don't send them out there yet. They're not ready. But at 20, watch out, world. Here we come. Because now they're ready. They're ready to go out in the world and to leave a mark as opposed to having a mark made on them. Okay. Wow. Time flies when you're having fun. Ben Shloshim, a 30-year-old lekoach, a 30-year-old for strength, because a 30-year-old has already finished sowing their oats. They've found themselves. They've taken all that stuff from 0 to 20, and they've now for 10 years they've been laying foundations for life. Mm. Now at 30, they can see themselves in the context of life. They can understand you don't need everything. There's a difference between a need and a want. It's very hard for a young person who's out there going to grab the world. It's very hard to get that. But at 30, once with all that's being put into this child, they have that understanding. By the way, how do I know this? Did I make this up? Sounds great. Levites, the Levium, they start their work career at 25, but those first 5 years are really basic training. And they actually start serving in the temple at 30. Because in order to be able to serve in the temple and to be able to be there for other people, to sublimate yourself, to be able to live a life that's all about others, You're not really ready to do that. You're not really fully shaped in that until the age of 30. And at the age of 30, they can now be what they're meant to be in the structure of Jewish life, which is inspirational people. A Levite and a Cohen, their job is to be an inspiration to the rest of us. They serve in the temple. They do things. They're around. They're sprinkled around the country in Israel in a way that they're there to lift people up and to be examples and paradigms. And you're not ready for that until the age of 30. Okay, we still got to get to 40, 50, 60. And I tell you, the most exciting and the most important part of life, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. Despite the fact that if you look at the words, in the Mishnah says, at 60, old age, shkoyach. Be careful. I never used to worry about this Mishnah. Now all of a sudden it becomes very serious. At 70, fullness of years. At 80, age of which is really in Hebrew, it really translates as hoary old age. At 80 is the age of strength. At 90, a bent body. Oh wow. What a lot to look forward to. At 100, as good as dead. But I'm making jokes of it. But look at it. How would a Mishnah say that? Like, I want you to know what you're capable of doing at 100, dying. What is that saying? If you're telling me, if I look at this Mishnah, at 20, you tell me I'm capable of doing something. At 30, I'm capable of doing something. At 40, I'm capable of doing something. So then what does that mean? At 90, I'm capable of dying. 90, I'm capable of having a bent body. Yeah, I can do that without the Mishnah. And at 100, I'm as dead and gone completely out of the world. Holy cow. Okay, you're going to see beautiful, beautiful things. Mirza Hashem. Oh, next Monday night? No. Next Monday night is Shavuos. The following Monday night is Mirza Hashem. Okay, everybody should have a wonderful week, a wonderful Shabbos, and a beautiful Shavuos.
Thanks, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you, Rabbi.
Great to see everybody. Take care.
Rabbi,
Bye.
thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you.